And welcome back to another exciting episode of Creatives Chat. Join us as we pick up where we left off with our combo between Peter and Alexei as we chat about who knows what.
Streaming from Retro Earth Studio and brought to you by
wearehistorically.com, Conscious Brand Apparel, and
Learn to play jazz piano like a pro, by a pro, with Jazz Piano Pro Essentials at jazzpianopro.com.
I'm very curious in terms of the Buddhist influence in your life. When did these teachings kind of become that compass for a lot of your own practice and work?
Yeah, I kind of encountered those teachings when I was 19. I'm 39 now. And yeah, it was kind of love at first sight, with those teachings, because they were just so clear and they spoke exactly to what was really interesting to me, which was how to transform suffering into freedom, and into joy.
Yeah.
And yeah, they've nourished me ever since then. Nourished, and I feel like, like I said, it's said in the Buddhist tradition that there are 84,000 doors to the Dharma. Right? You've heard this phrase? And I think that the Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, it remains a very wide, beautiful, and easy to enter door. Because you don't need to take anything on faith, and you don't need to give up any of your, this kind of community that I hope to co-create with others, because obviously this is too complicated for, we need to build something like this together.
You get community to build the real community.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of the teachings for me have been about learning how to ask for help, just for hey, I don't know how to do this. Can we do it together? Or this is scary. Can you talk to me about this? But this community would not be in any kind of competition with any other spiritual tradition. That's a really nice thing about Buddhism. And I think why Buddhism is, if I'm not mistaken, the fastest growing spiritual tradition in the West. These kinds of reasons that a person could still, go to church or go to the mosque, go to the synagogue, go to the Hindu temple, because it's just about transforming suffering into freedom.
Yeah.
And the particular language in which you relate to the sacred is up to you.
Yeah.
So I think that makes it a really, really nice door.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that.
And I think that makes it also into, I conceive of it as a kind of basket. Like the original sutras, they were kept on, I think, palm leaves. They were written on palm leaves, and the leaves were kept in these baskets. And I think the teachings of the Buddha, they're this really nice, beautiful, well-made basket that's a good container. And you can actually, you can invite just some dope-ass rabbis to come teach us something like this. You could invite some amazing Sufi teacher to come teach. And there's just this container of the Buddha Dharma around it.
Yeah.
But it's still bringing the pieces of the puzzle together. We're all kind of, I think, it's a kind of, we've talked of the Tribal United Nations. It's a kind of spiritual academy right? Yeah, this is like language I like. And I learned recently that originally in the first academy, Plato's academy, it was kind of, they would just come together and hang out.
Yeah.
Basically. And Plato would be like, why don't we like think about this stuff this week and just kind of rap about it. So I think that here in an academy like this, also we're coming together. It's a kind of academy or university. We're bringing our knowledge together. Some people may be a little bit further along the way, but we're all students ultimately, because
100%.
the teacher in a way is the mystery. The teacher is the earth. The teacher, we can say, is the great spirit or the Tao.
Yes.
That's the source.
Yeah.
And we are the students. You know what I mean?
Oh, dude, yeah. I'm just like,
we're the students. And one other analogy, since I'm on this little roll of analogies, it's really helpful because I just came back on Tuesday and you're helping me. This is integration for me also. We're kind of
love it.
doing it together. Is that the Dharma? Yeah, the Dharma is a cup, right? It's a cup. You need a cup. If you want to drink, it's much easier to have a cup. You can drink without a cup, but you're gonna get water everywhere. And it's just not the most skillful way to do it.
Yeah.
So the Dharma is a nice cup. It can be, very ornate. Tibetans like to have a lot of jewel. It can be very simple. The Japanese like to have it be very, very, very simple, a little cracked. But it just needs to hold the water. And that water, is the teaching of this mystery. Yeah. So we are just potters together, right? We would be potters, kind of making this nice cup together. Yeah. And getting refreshed.
I love it.
Thanks.
I love that. I love that. It just it resonates so strongly. And I really do appreciate you taking the time, despite such a quick turnaround from such an intense experience, I'm sure, to really just hold space, just to kind of express this vision. And I already know that it's going to come to fruition. Like, I think that's one of the things that fascinates me so much behind this is, I very much so align as we're always learning in students. It's kind of the mission of what we're on. It's this never-ending search of really to come into a deeper understanding of this great mystery called life. And life is the greatest teacher. And when we can fully give ourselves hold space for ourselves where we can just recognize that, then it just eliminates all of the almost like egocentric human issues that can get aligned with truth and, teacher worship, or like guru idolization. And it comes back to that, just knowing that it's like, listen, like we are all the expressions of truth itself.
Yeah.
Your truth is your truth. My truth is my truth, but we're all of one. Yeah. And that's the beauty of it, is like there's an infinite understanding of what truth can be seen as because of the unimaginable and incomprehensible potential of like how far the truth really goes in its ocean of depth. But that's the beauty of this experience. That's why I like to use the phrase of exchanging puzzle pieces, because it's like, listen, I have my own puzzle pieces of my perception, you have your own, and when we share ours, we get a greater, fuller picture of this gift of life. And to be able to create a culture where people really respect that divine, that true understanding of namaste, like that reverence to the divine within each being, that's the magic right there. 100%. And just know that this is the great playground of life.
That's right. It's much more fun that way.
Right.
When we're all students. Yeah, it's a lot more fun.
It's natural. You're open.
And I think we have to be real humble, to kind of that's the right attitude in which we're taught. and we receive the
Mm.
teachings in this sacred and ancient way.
Ooh, yes,
And
because
it's a part of the. Remember, when I was a little kid, my teacher, her name was Galina Andreevna. She was strict and very, very caring. She was a great teacher. And she taught us to raise our hands like this. There's a particular way. And when she entered the classroom, we all stood, but it wasn't, it respected, even though we were, 7, 8 years old, there was a respect for our dignity in that. It was not a power move. It was just like, now the learning is going to begin, So she taught me, and my elders growing up taught me how to listen to them, respect them, try to learn.
Yeah.
And
Oof.
hopefully we'll be able to step into that gradually also.
That right there is a really important component, though, to all of this that I feel is a point of almost turbulence in terms of manifesting these really truth-based centers, organizations, communities, is that there is such a disconnect that a lot of people have with their own trauma and their own lack of that connection with ancestral lineage, with
Right.
the elderly, with
Right.
those, because of just all the different things that happen in life, obviously. But I think that's, again, what's one of those things that's definitely lacking, is so many people just from the get-go are disconnected from community, even in their own nuclear family, in their own nuclear field. And I'm just curious in your thoughts, where how can one provide that type of experience for someone who doesn't realize that a lot of that suffering comes from the lacking of that?
That it comes from the individual's lack of community and family and
That
ancestral lineage.
Yeah, because there's a
And
trust that gets
good
established.
elders.
Yeah. There's like a vulnerability and a trust that opens up through those types of experiences, that when we lack it, there's a lot of, I just think of like the egoic natures of contraction, where it's just like you close off a lot of opportunities before they can even come to fruition.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I see what you mean.
How can we help those heal from that?
Well, I think first and foremost, I think the biggest challenge that we've got, and I think that we need to crowdsource how to resolve. And I'm trying to, for me, this is the most tricky piece of this puzzle, is how do we create, there's a need on one hand for kind of ethical leadership, on the other hand for checks and balances. Here, I think actually our democratic tradition, which comes from what were at that time the Five Nations, sometimes called the Iroquois, right? They taught a lot of these principles to the folks that crafted that document not that far from where I'm sitting now, both the Constitution, and they received those principles through, in a sacred way. There was a person that came, they had a lot of war, who established their confederacy and democracy. And then they taught, among other people, Benjamin Franklin. It's a really interesting history once you start reading it, because we're usually taught in school that everything is coming from the Greeks and Romans.
Yeah, and it's like natives were savages and didn't have society. And it's like they're super deep.
It's really interesting, but that's not all what was going on. There's a reason a lot of the Europeans were fleeing and staying with the tribes, and no people from the tribes were ever fleeing and staying with the colonists. Like that's the proof is in the pudding kind of thing.
Facts.
So I think that there needs to be very, very carefully considered democratic principles of probably a rotating leadership, very careful. We want to avoid a lot of the pitfalls of, sort of guru stuff, or kind of where dudes are suddenly just in control and the women are, kind of WTFing, So there's a lot of care that needs to be brought to the construction, to the kind of constitution of such an assembly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to study, what the native people, are doing. I want to learn from the Quakers. There are people that have done things a little better than others in that regard, and I think that there are ways to craft it which are good. So the second thing is, when a new person comes to such a community, they wouldn't it would take some time before they sat with the community and drank medicine, drank these sacred plants together.
100%.
There would be a curriculum of just like, you want to fly, you gotta go to flight school. You know what I mean?
Right.
we don't put a person behind the plane just like that.
Right.
And I think that there are principles that are well known. It would be historically beautiful, so to speak. Sorry.
Love it.
Yeah, there would be a kind of curriculum. There would probably be. I'm still, thinking about these kind of logistical details, and usually, I want to, like, just through lots of conversations to put together a clear way for this to be done very, very safely.
Yeah.
Probably also, a community would have to kind of see that the individual entering into that kind of ceremonial world has a certain degree of stability, inner stability, right? Because there are certain, sometimes, factors where it's not good for a person to work with those sacred plants. They first have to do some other work.
Yeah, 100%.
All that said, by the time that a person feels ready to do ceremonial work, and the community feels ready for them to kind of join in that, they'll have friends, they'll be surrounded. It won't, that's the other thing. When we come to retreat, sometimes it's a bunch of strangers that come together. It still can be very beautiful.
Yeah.
But,
way different going into it, though.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, sometimes it's just like, I don't know any of these people. I don't really know anything about these facilitators because they got to keep things on the DL. And suddenly it's like, oh my God, I'm in the sacred realms. Things are opening up. Help. And then people get into trouble, where they can get kind of overwhelmed and scared and have a difficult experience.
Yeah.
But here, it's spiritual friendship, right? The Buddhist said that spiritual friendship is the number one factor in opening the wings of awakening. So, your boys, these are your brothers and sisters, right? But by the time you're sitting down for such a ceremony,
so much love.
Yeah, there's love, and there's knowledge of one another, and so when you look around, you're like, all right, cool. This person was over at my house for dinner the other day. They're gonna hold it down for me.
Yeah.
I can trust. I can let go.
Truth, that security.
I can remember what I was taught, right? I can breathe. I can surrender.
Ooh, right there. Yeah, that full surrender. You have no reservations. You can let go. You just know in your heart that it's
You're
this.
protected. You're with family.
Yeah, and it's such a different energy about it too, where again that family aspect, that camaraderie, the brothership, the sisterhood, that's something that is fascinating to me because, so full disclosure, so so my ayahuasca experience is, I was called to them from this path of kind of, it was one of the lessons I learned in the second one, obviously, like asking for help and things like that, but is coming from a place of independence. And it was this kind of self-led journey where it was just like I was just called it. And so for me, I did mine locally here by myself and just fully dove deep into the immersion of life on the first. The second was definitely a little bit more intense, so it was not as adventurous. But and then the third.
Bold move. Bold move.
Well, that was the kind of thing for me to overcome certain fears. And from my yearning for the truth, I knew with my intentions in the first one, how strong they were, that this was just, I knew in my heart, this is what I needed to do.
I respect the courage because I know you were coming at it with a lot of grounding already.
Yeah. And
in traditions.
Exactly. And that's the respect I wanted to do. And the second time I was not being so respectful, and I got humbled real quick with that one. I got humbled real quick, but it just comes back to that point where, there is such a difference between having people around you and going through it yourself. Like that's just one of my trial by fires, and my upbringing is I've always had that sense of just knowledge of self, and to trust in myself, and to trust more so in life. That was my biggest thing. I trust life fully. I have so much faith in, the energies and the consciousness of the universe that I go out and gratitude every day. It's something that I find as an incredibly powerful experience to have that community. Until going through those journeys by myself, I came to realize just how important it is and how special it can be for a community aspect of it. Because I guess the way to pitch it real quick and shorten that up is I saw it as my own kind of what would you call it? That my own rite of passage. That was my own journey into the woods,
It's really interesting. That makes sense. Yeah.
And to see the power of the other aspect of experiences in which I've shared with, and not in a sacred plant experience, but just a pure loving musical experience or creative expression experience. It's like there's such a different transformative energy that can move mountains. It's so powerful, and I really resonate with everything you're putting down. Like this community. Yeah. What was that? Sorry.
You mean kind of the transformative energy in community?
Oh yeah.
With friendship. I mean, I'm fundamentally talking about friendship.
Yeah, real deep bonds.
Or that kinship.
Yeah. Because that's the one thing, I guess. I went to an all-guys high school, Catholic high school, funny enough. And that's one of the things of brotherhood about the school, is that I came to experience that as like the first real knowing of just like, oh, this is what it's like to be vulnerable with people that I'm not connected with by blood, but I feel deeper bonds than that of blood. It was a very interesting upbringing experience in that sense, but it's just this potential of that transformative energy based around love.
Yeah.
It's I don't know, like those that know it, you already know, like I'm speechless right now because like there's just so much that can come from it. It's so powerful. Like
right.
Yeah, I vibe with that.
We need to be seen, and we need our identity to come not from our job or our swag, but because we belong. We belong, and it's like that's my boy. Like that's it. Like that's my person. Like I'm gonna struggle for this person if they ever have a hard time. We need that. That's that. That spiritual friendship. But actually, like the word spiritual is actually extra. Because friendship true friendship is spiritual, onto itself. Whether you kind of think of things in those terms or not, because it's a form of it's a very powerful form of love.
Yeah.
And I think that it kind of reweaves, that book Black Elk Speaks by chance? It's Black Elk Speaks.
No, it sounds vaguely familiar though.
It's by this Lakota medicine man whose name was Black Elk, and he talks a lot about the hoop of a nation, this kind of circle, right? That he was speaking of the Lakota nation, but it also applies to the United States as a nation, where all these tribes gathered together on this land.
Yeah.
Right. Our folks, either were native to this land or came because they were having a very hard time somewhere, by and large.
Yeah.
And I see, I think we all see it's like those threads are being very frayed. It doesn't even feel like a hoop. It feels like
truth.
And I think that it's actually, at the end of the day, friendship that strengthens those threads and creates this very beautiful sacred hoop that we're all in together. And then we can have a barbecue or something, then we can have a great time. But
like that.
But I just want to emphasize, also, from my mind, it's about friendship ultimately. This kind of community, and but that kind of friendship, which we could also call kinship. Where it's like, all right, and community, these circles, strengthening these circles, this awesome pattern you've got behind you.
Right.
Some people you're really tight with. Some people you just love because they're your community.
Ooh, that's the future that I feel everyone knows is possible, because from what I've seen in just terms of my experiences of facilitating with those heal, is there's a common thread of worthlessness that we get imbued with, especially here in America. I mean, it's a human natural thing, but it's that lack of belonging that to me is one of the deepest root of really separation itself, is that when we don't have that connection. And that's why I feel like the grounding of and the foundation of truth being based in this ancient wisdom is so profound, because when we all come to that same ground of being, that's it. That's all there is. And there is everything else that we see outside of us. Is we know the superficiality of it. We know the sacredness of it too, where it's like, you were born in your part of the world, I was born in mine, and we all went through our lives, but here we are sharing this moment together. And it's that beautiful divine timing that just allows life to unfold deeper understandings because of this just grounding of being that, clearly both of us have recognized, that it just changes the way you interact with life. And when you do that, I feel like it's this trust and this love that we lack for so long, that it just manifests in all these crazy issues down the line.
Right, for certain. That makes sense.
It's trippy. It's so trippy to think about. And I know that word's just loosely thrown out there, but it truly is mind-boggling how so many issues we have manifested from this just initial lack of knowledge of home, of that heart knowing.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's actually, I think that, all we really need is a fire, right? Our ancestors clearly had fires.
Yeah.
And some food, and something. It can, some people might enjoy beer too. Other people, that's not their culture. But that can be done in kind of a sacred way also, that promotes friendship and love.
Mm.
You know, a couple of musical instruments can be very handy,
Right.
and then friends. You know, friends, and very nice to have like maybe a dog there. Good.
Yeah, just get that. Hey, let's get that love generator coming over here. Just
You know what I'm saying? And then you have different generations. You got some elders and you got some kids,
right.
and that's pretty much your good.
Right.
Like you can just with that go through all of life with great joy, and like everything is golden.
That's funny that you say that, because it brings back to that point where it's like, you know, how many of the early settlers went to go live with the native tribes, and how many of the native tribes came to come live with the settlers. It's
Right.
that same aspect of all of these, I guess you would say, whether it's, you want to say, tribal or shamanistic cultures that still live in their own isolation in the forest, you know, and in the plains, like all throughout the world, there's still tribes that just don't really care for modern civilization as much. But it's that same reason right there, is because when you have everything you need, when your cup's already filled,
Right.
you know, you don't need to keep filling it up.
No, you don't really need much more.
Man,
You're just chilling at that point.
how so beautiful. Life is so simple, but and like we just see how much we complicate it. But just like in terms of really like living a loving, happy, healthy life, so simple. So simple.
Yeah, it's really simple. I think that the Dharma and the plant, you know, the sacred plants, they're just there to remind us. Again, because we're very good at complicating it and forgetting.
Yeah.
They're just like, yo, look at these stars, aren't they amazing? Do you like, and you're like, holy, yeah, wow, that's really amazing.
Yeah, never seen stars like this before. It's like, yeah, just open your eyes.
Yeah,
Just
and then,
look.
and then they'll be like, now think of like this friend of yours. Remember how much you love them, and you're like, oh my god, I really love this person. You're right. And so they sort of like remind you of what is that central axis, right? Because yeah, friendship is the sacred, right? The children are the sacred, the elders are the sacred, the fire, the instruments, the song, the sky, the trees.
Ooh, that's so powerful. Like, and that's I guess that's probably one of the best sales pitches for any type of sacred plant experience right there, is just come back to your center. If you really want to come back to your center. And I think that's actually really funny enough. I actually think that's the problem with the assimilation and integration. It's if we don't fully come to understand and appreciate that center, then we're more than happy to stray away from it. But and that's where you can kind of see the different levels of those who are, and which is why I really align with your aspect of, you know, there should be prep work before this happens for your experience, because until you come to a certain point, I really try to stray away from the word like maturity. I'd almost say like ripening, rather, is like once the fruit's ripe, it drops. Like once you're really feeling like when you really fall in love with change and transformation and just like the truth, you don't care about the pain and suffering that's going to come from it, because you know what it's meant to lead you to, you know. So it's that humbling factor where it's like, if you're already humbled by the experience of life and then take one of these opportunistic pathways within and around and all, you know, that's what really changes the experience when you leave it, is that you come to appreciate what's already there. And then that's when natural things just kind of energetically just drop away. You're just like, I don't need that anymore. I don't really care for that.
You're right. Exactly. And I think there's a kind of also, you know, like loop that happens where it's like we inherit certain beautiful teachings. Maybe it's from grandma, maybe it's from Rumi, from somewhere. There's lots of different people talking to us, singing to us, sharing, taking care of us. And they, you know, not by bread alone, they nurture us.
Yeah.
And then we go into the plant experience with some of these principles. They hopefully keep us humble and well, let's just say that they keep us humble
Let's just say they keep us. Yeah, let's just say they keep us humble.
Let's just stay there, right? And then, but then there's the plants teach us, right? And the, let's call them the sacred powers.
Ooh.
Teach us.
Yeah.
And that loops back in, and we bring it home, and we check it against all the stuff we were taught previously. And those things take on new layers, and we grow stronger, and we go back, and you know what I mean? It keeps building and strengthening.
Yeah. It's that true infinity loop.
Yeah, exactly. There's an infinity loop, and through that, we're also sharing knowledge with each other in the let's say tribal United Nations or the friendship and kinship circle.
Yeah.
And we're learning.
Yeah.
Because we're still very young. We're still kids, I feel like, as human beings. You know, we're really fucked up. Like 7-year-olds are sometimes.
Yes, dude. That's awesome.
But you know, we got a lot to learn. That's okay.
Yeah.
We can do it.
Oh yeah. And that right there is so, I really like the way you phrase that. It's so eloquent because it's the beautiful process and the almost like the artistic expression of creation, where it's, you know, I always like the question, it's like, is a tree without the earth? Is a tree without the air, the water? You know, it's like, no, we are interconnected with life. Every aspect of life is something that can nourish us every time. And I think that's the weird disconnect that's happened is, you know, especially the first real severing of ties was like our unification with nature. It's, you know, there's zero reason why our architecture, why all of our industry should be built around harmonizing with nature. There's literally zero reason for it. You know, we see all the issues of when we don't. If they're always repave the roads, there's landslides, there's accidents because of animals crossing the street. You know, there's people that die from those. There's all this crazy chaos that just comes from us not harmonizing ourselves with life. That when we recognize that it's every aspect of it, I think that was the most important thing for me. You know, when you talk about looking at the stars, you know, in this kind of expanded perceptive state, like I think there was a moment of overwhelmingness. I remember one time just gazing up at the stars. It was a beautiful night, just clear sky. I think I was out camping one night, and it was just that kind of overwhelming inferiority, like the ego just being like, oh my gosh, like that's one star. Think of all the planets around just the one star, the potential lives. Like this life is so, at the time it was trying to kind of pull me into those like insignificant, almost take it in a dark way. And that fear was transmuted into love simply through the knowing of, wow, but what a great, beautiful gift to be here right now amongst the whole in this interworking and gears and networks of just the divine timing. Because this is after I think my first or second ayahuasca experience, and it was just like processing things still, but it was just like, but I just know that the interconnectedness and the oneness where it's like, this is such a gift to be a part of this great dance that is filled with so many different souls and spirits and energies, that it is an honor to be here amongst everyone and sharing this moment. And there's a significance in the insignificance. And it's just like, it's being able to express that to people and teach people that in this sense of community is like, that's a real powerful thing. I can see it already.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, that's humility, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like, on one hand, on a certain level, it seems like we're one with this great mystery. And on the other hand, on the kind of relative level, we're a little dust speck. And they're both, it seems like they're both true. And it's nice to realize how small we are actually, you know?
Oh yeah.
It's cool. Like, wow.
Well, it gives you that
mysterious and amazing world.
Right? That point of reverence. Like, how can we, it's that honoring of what the gift that we have, where it's like, wow, I am but one window of awareness to the infinite. still pretty dope to be a window of awareness from the infinite.
Yeah. You know, yeah, really extraordinary.
So I just want to add this to it, because when you're talking about simply this unification of, I guess you would say, the bringing it back to our center, and all the different facets of this kind of infinity loop that bring about the experience, I very like to akin it back to just nature and Mother Earth. And it's just the fact that I like how you're saying even earlier with the symbology of it, it's like a tree is a perfect symbol, but a tree in its entirety, the roots, everything. Because that's what I feel like sacred medicine allows us to do, is really go back to the roots and dig deep. And the deeper the roots grow, the higher the tree grows. So it just creates this beautiful balance of just like internal and external expansion that offers up more opportunity for people to connect. A greater tree can bring more fruit. It can bring more homes for different aspects of nature. Like same things with the community.
Do you
bring
mean
more
kind of
people.
the inner tree of one's being?
Yeah. The inner tree, where it's like the sacred medicine allows us this opportunity to really dig deep into the roots, and it gives the roots a little bit of extra fertilizer to go even deeper, and then the tree itself will grow even higher. Like it's
right.
Yeah, this has been a really beautiful experience, man. Thank you for sharing it with me. This is dope.
No, this is super. I really appreciate the conversation. I'm really enjoying it also. Maybe I'll say one thing about this tree piece.
Oh yeah, dude. Go.
Just that I'm thinking about. Well, we have kind of the image of the world tree, right? The symbolic image of the world tree. Kind of, I've been thinking about this central axis thing a lot, right? So we have this. Sometimes the central axis is represented, which is a kind of symbol unto itself, is represented by a symbol of this world tree. Different cultures used to have, specific trees that kind of symbolize that. Actually, when the Romans rolled through, they cut them down in much of Europe, unfortunately. Those trees that exist in Europe. But sometimes a mountain is the symbol of the central axis. You have, certain mountains in, there's a mountain in Himalaya, which represents that. One of the Black Hills, a mountain in the Black Hills in the Lakota lands, represents this kind of central axis that runs through the very center of everything. And it's a fascinating thing. It's like, why are all these cultures talking about these central axes? Like, what's going on with this tree mountain? What is happening? And there's very, very, very interesting symbols in the Andes pointing to that. And we also have a central axis, right? Sometimes we see this image with the spine and the chakras. And there's an axis like that in the center of our being, of our body. And I think here I'm just kind of sharing kind of the edge of what I'm contemplating. But I want to share it because crowdsourcing, right? I think that the ancients, our ancestors, the people that came before us, very clearly understood how to travel, kind of spiritually travel, we can say. Not in any way that is, in a very grounded, practical way. They would use this for practical purposes. So I'm not talking, this isn't something like woo kind of, but just that there is a way, it seems, they're pointing to, with these different symbols, of traveling. The topography is presented differently in different cultures. The Quechua and the Andes talk about the lower world, the middle world, and the upper world.
Yeah.
Which is represented by the serpent, the puma, and the condor.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think that there's a way to travel between these different elements, we could say, of our own consciousness, if we're speaking in a little bit more of an Eastern language, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like Buddhist or Hindu language. Or we could say we're traveling between different frequencies of nature.
Yeah.
Well, within the laws of nature,
Yeah.
just can't be measured by our ordinary instruments right
Exactly.
now.
Yeah. Yeah. For now.
For now, at least, But we can move between these realms and access information from the lower, from a kind of middle realm, which sort of parallel to our ordinary realm that we perceive, from the upper realm.
Mm.
And this information, there are different tools for doing that. Some of them, many cultures have used sacred plants for doing that. It can be done through meditation, certain meditative practices.
Oh, yeah.
We have it in Christian art. You see it all the time, where it's like the Holy Spirit descending as a dove onto a saint, let's say, right? And I'll wrap it up because I know we've been going for a minute. But I'll
love it. Keep it rolling, yo.
Yeah, I'll just kind of walk it home. In every culture, in Islam, you have the Prophet Muhammad traveling from a central axis in Jerusalem up to heaven.
Yeah.
Every spiritual tradition has similar teachings.
Yeah.
And I think that right now, it's been lost. It's been very, very, very lost by the modern world. This possibility to, again, just access very, very important and helpful information
100%.
through a kind of spiritual technique or technology, you could say.
Yeah.
And I think that our job is to regain that ability, regain it on a mass scale in our generation, teach it to the coming generations. I think that the ancestors have left us all manner of clues for how to do that. And I think that there are cultures that still know how to do that very, very well.
Yeah.
Probably most powerfully among different indigenous people of the earth.
Yeah.
And I think that if we do that, we'll be able to gain access to kind of a more full spectrum. It's like that meme, where the person's mind is expanding with every frame. We'll be able to gain access to a more full spectrum of our human abilities given to us by nature, where we'll be able to access important information for getting aligned with something that we could call a heartbeat of the earth, or we could call kind of the divine melody.
Yeah.
Getting in tune and playing our part beautifully and rocking out with all of creation.
Yes.
That's what I want to say about that. And I think that
No, dude, like that's like, again, listeners, I hope you're listening to that. Rewind that back. That's truth right there. Like, that's one of those things that is just the only way to express and explain so much of our history is the fact that we have these abilities. And I think that's what's really awakening in people is, I look at we look at all the indigenous cultures throughout the world. Okay, so please tell me why every one of them has their own form of ayahuasca.
Right.
Where did they learn it from? Their ancestors. Okay, well, clearly someone had to know before they did it. And it's not like it's a simple brew, or it's like or technically the brewing technique is somewhat simple, but it's not like the ingredients to combine them are simple.
Right.
You have to look, you have to find, you have to know what you're looking for, right time of the year for certain areas. There's so much
Yeah.
sacred wisdom that has just been lost because, and this is actually a really funny thing. This is where I think we're at as our point of society is we're the ones that are meant to bring the harmony back so we can be in alignment, because we went super into spirit, and from our ancestors, they clearly knew a lot more than we know now in that realm. And then we kind of had that expulsion from it, that separation from it for a good majority of us, for like the masses, where it went back into this materialism was weighing heavy. And now we're having people return back to this point of reverence and gratitude and really kind of unfolding this great mystery. And that central axis point is, to me, it's the exact knowing that when you look for yourself, you find God. When you look for God, you find yourself. Like, that's been my experience of it, where it's been this ability to recognize where it's like, oh my gosh, when we really do empty our cup of all the things we think we know, and all the assumptions and all of the conditionings and pain, and we transform this suffering into strength or power, like we come to this point of recognizing that there's still so much more we don't understand about our experience, but that which has been seen already transcends what we currently know about the human potential. I just think of looking at different TM experiments that have gone on, and just like our ability to manifest and create peace deals and treaties and reduce crime, to just the random number generator things that happen, that we're able to sense events coming, as a mass. Like, when we can really awaken the full power of what we are and tap in within ourselves, like, dude, there's nothing that we can't achieve. Like,
Right.
it's in every culture in terms of their knowledge of the stars, of the planets. And I remember looking into a lot of old, like, Vedic, like, Hindu culture in that sense. And I can't remember the name of it, but there's a dance in a certain area of India where it's for a marital dance, where they dance around each other, and it's like then the woman will stay still and the man will dance around the woman, and then they'll almost like switch. And they're like, oh, what's the origin of this? And when you look in the roots of it, it's based on stars. It's based on these two, like, literally the dances. I'm pretty sure the dance is called the stars itself, but it's before they had telescopes. It's before they had like any of this stuff to really know that, oh, stars are rotating around each other. That's a dual star system. Fast forward till now, and we see it. They're like,
That's interesting.
how'd they know? Because they were tapped in. Like,
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, we are nature, right? And nature is infinitely creative and abundant. So we must be as well, if we can just understand how to be in tune.
And that tuning is a very important word for the concept of frequency, and just that everything is vibration, everything is energy.
Right.
And that frequency in which we align ourselves, I almost like to akin it like a video game. You can live in the same world as everyone else, but you see a different map. You see things that others don't. When you live in gratitude, you see everything as grace, and some people just see it as, what's life doing to me?
Yeah, yeah, it's an amazing thing. It's a really extraordinary thing, the way that our very perception is altered by, yeah, just kind of the mindset, right, that we bring to situations.
Yeah.
It's so wild.
Dude, that central axis point, I'm gonna have to marinate in that one. That's beautiful. There's so
Yeah.
much there's so much to dive into it, because it's, I think, again, that comes back to the point of our disconnect. We were originally disconnected from ourselves, and in that aspect of our own divinity and our own sanctity and our own beauty as this creature of life, as life itself. It's like, is a cat, is a bird, is a dog outside of life? No, it's life. Everything here is life. We've somehow separated ourselves from experience and
Right.
nature and ourselves. And it's like, and as we've talked about, we see all the crazy stuff going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think we can I think that we can get it back.
Yeah.
I think that we can kind of, yeah, I think we can return to balance. I think we can become people that future generations will be proud to call their ancestors, you know.
Oh man, and I see that future as well. And I just want to say, Alexei, thank you so much for coming on Creatives Chat. And with that, roll the outro.
Thanks again to our sponsors for making this show possible.
Raise your vibration and energize your life with specialized Fibonacci tuning forks that deepen meditations and empower self-healing. Get your vibrational sound tools for personal enhancement at energybodytuners.com.
Thank you, We Are Historically, for your conscious human apparel. Shop online at wearehistorically.com.
Hi, I'm Darius Wilrich. I'll teach you everything you need to know about playing jazz piano like a pro with my 12-week online video course and downloadable guidebook, Jazz Piano Pro Essentials. Enroll today at jazzpianopro.com.
Thank you for joining us. Have a happy always.
That concludes this episode of Creatives Chat. Thank you for watching. Join us every Thursday at 3:33 p.m. Pacific Daily Time as creative minds get together and chat about who knows what. View more episodes on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
That's interesting.